The pounding on Sarah Brennan's door started at exactly 4:07 a.m. 3 sharp knocks that cut through the silence of her apartment and jolted her awake. She sat up in bed, disoriented, her heart racing in the darkness. No one knocked at this hour. No one. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. No messages, no missed calls, nothing that would explain someone pounding on her door before sunrise. The knocking came again. Urgent, insistent. 3 more sharp raps that echoed through her apartment. Sarah threw off the covers and pulled on her robe, her mind already running through possibilities. Emergency in the building? Fire alarm malfunction? One of her elderly neighbors needing help? She moved through her apartment toward the front door, the hardwood floor cold against her bare feet. Through the peephole, she saw a man she didn't recognize. Early 30s, wearing a work jacket with some kind of logo on it, his face pale and strained under the hallway lights. He looked terrified. Sarah kept the chain lock engaged and cracked the door open just enough to speak. "Who are you?" "My name is Derek Hale," the man said, his voice low and rushed. "I live in 1203. We're neighbors. I need to talk to you right now." Sarah's hand tightened on the door handle. She vaguely remembered seeing this man before, always in work clothes, usually carrying a toolbox, sometimes with a little girl. But they'd never spoken more than a polite nod in passing. "It's 4 in the morning, Sarah said, her voice sharp with suspicion. I know how this looks." Derek glanced down the hallway as if checking whether anyone else was listening. "Please, this can't wait. It's about your office." Sarah felt a spike of confusion mixed with irritation. "My office? How do you even know where I work?" "Because 3 days ago I was there," Derek said. His voice cracked slightly. "I installed equipment in your private office at Crestline Pharmaceuticals, and tonight I found out what it really is." Sarah stared at him through the gap in the door. The hallway was empty except for the 2 of them. The building was silent. Everything about this moment felt surreal. "What are you talking about?" she asked slowly. Derek stepped closer to the door, his eyes locked on hers. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper, but every word hit like a hammer. "Don't go to the office today. Just trust me. If you walk into that building this morning, you're going to die." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She studied the man's face through the narrow opening. He wasn't drunk. His eyes were clear, focused. He wasn't high. His speech was coherent, controlled. He was scared out of his mind. "I'm calling security," Sarah said, reaching for her phone. "Wait. Please, just wait." Derek pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "Just look at this. Please. Then if you still want to call security, I'll leave. I promise." Something in his voice, the raw desperation, made Sarah pause. She took his phone through the gap in the door and looked at the screen. Photos, industrial equipment, metal canisters with warning labels, digital displays showing numbers and codes, ventilation connections, close-ups of sealed pneumatic valves, technical diagrams with handwritten notes in the margins. None of it meant anything to her. "I don't understand what I'm looking at," Sarah said. 3 days ago, a company hired me to install what they called an air filtration upgrade in your office," Derek said, talking fast now, the words tumbling out. "They paid me $5,000 cash. I'm an HVAC technician. I work for commercial buildings all over Boston." The job seemed completely legitimate. They had proper work orders, building access clearance, everything. Sarah kept scrolling through the photos, her confusion deepening. "But tonight I couldn't sleep," Derek continued. "Something about that job kept bothering me. The equipment had components I'd never seen before. The client was evasive about certain details. The money was too good for what seemed like routine work. So I got up around midnight and started researching the model numbers on the parts they gave me." He swiped to another screen on his phone. A technical specification sheet from some kind of defense contractor website. "It's not a filtration system," Derek said, his voice dropping even lower. "It's a chemical dispersal device, military-grade technology designed for covert operations. And according to the digital timer I photographed during installation, it's set to activate at 8:30 this morning." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. "That's impossible. Our building has safety inspections every month, security protocols. There's no way something like that could— The work order came from inside your company, Derek interrupted. It was authorized by someone named Dr. James Collier. I have all the paperwork. His signature is on everything. The authorization went through your company's official channels. That's why security let me in. That's why nobody questioned it. The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. James Collier, her chief medical officer, her mentor for the past 15 years. The man who'd been there when she'd founded Crestline Pharmaceuticals, who'd helped her navigate the impossible maze of FDA approvals and clinical trials, who'd celebrated every milestone with her. James, who'd become like family after her husband Tom died 5 years ago. Sarah's hands felt suddenly numb. She looked at Derek's phone again, studying the authorization documents he'd pulled up. The signature looked authentic. The company seal was correct, but the contracting company name, Apex Environmental Solutions, meant nothing to her. She'd never heard of them. "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah asked, her mind racing through possibilities. "If you installed it, aren't you part of whatever this is?" "For all I know, you're here to make sure I stay away so your partners can break into my apartment." "I didn't know what it was," Derek said, and there was genuine anguish in his voice now. "I swear to you, I thought it was exactly what they said, an air quality upgrade. I've done hundreds of installations just like this, HVAC systems, ventilation improvements, environmental controls. This looked the same, but when I researched those components tonight and realized what I'd actually installed..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "I have a 7-year-old daughter sleeping in my apartment right now. If I'd known what that equipment was designed to do, I never would have touched it. I'm not a criminal. I'm just a technician trying to make a living and take care of my kid." Sarah studied his face, her years of experience reading people in high-stakes business negotiations telling her something crucial. This man was telling the truth. Whatever was happening, he was as much a victim of this as she was. Maybe more so, because he'd been used as an unwitting accomplice. "Come inside," Sarah said, unlatching the chain. "We need to figure out what's going on." Derek stepped into her apartment, his movements cautious, as if he was worried she might change her mind or that this was some kind of trap. Sarah closed the door and led him to the kitchen table, turning on lights as she went. The apartment felt too quiet, too normal for what they were discussing. "Show me everything," Sarah said, gesturing to a chair. "Every detail you remember about this job." Derek sat down and pulled up files on his phone while Sarah started making coffee. Her hands were steady. Years of running a pharmaceutical company had taught her to stay calm in crisis. But her mind was working overtime, processing implications and possibilities. "The initial contact came through email about 2 weeks ago," Derek said, scrolling through his messages. "A man named Richard Foster said he represented Apex Environmental Solutions. He told me they'd been contracted to upgrade air quality systems in several executive offices at Crestline Pharmaceuticals. He said the company was being proactive about health and safety after some employees complained about air circulation issues." Sarah set 2 mugs on the table and sat down across from him. "Did you meet this Richard Foster in person?" "Once, 3 days ago. He wanted to hand off the equipment personally and go over the installation specs. We met in a parking garage in Quincy. Neutral location, he said. He gave me the equipment in sealed cases and half the payment, $2,500 in cash. He said the other half would be mailed after I completed and documented the installation." "Did you get it?" "No. He said the check was being processed through their accounting department. Should arrive within a week, but I'm still waiting." Derek pulled up a photo on his phone. "This is Richard Foster. I took this picture at the meeting without him knowing." Something about the whole situation felt off, so I wanted documentation. Sarah looked at the image. A man in his 40s, well dressed in an expensive suit, standing next to a black SUV. His face was partially turned away from the camera, but his features were visible. He looked professional, ordinary, the kind of person who could blend into any corporate environment. "Can I send this to myself?" Sarah asked. "Of course." Sarah transferred the photo to her phone. "You said you have the work orders. Can I see those too?" Derek pulled up the digital documents. Sarah examined them carefully. The letterhead looked correct. Crestline's logo, proper formatting. James Collier's signature at the bottom, authorizing environmental system upgrades for the executive floor. A purchase order number that would be in the company system. Everything appeared legitimate, which made it so much worse. "Tell me exactly what you installed," Sarah said. "Every component, every connection, everything you remember." For the next 45 minutes, Derek walked her through the technical details. The sealed canisters that connected directly into her office's dedicated ventilation system through a bypass valve that circumvented the main building filtration. The digital timer with both programmed sequence and remote activation capability. The pneumatic release mechanism designed to disperse the canister contents rapidly and evenly throughout the enclosed space. The fail-safe protocols that would make it nearly impossible to stop once initiated without triggering immediate release. Sarah typed searches into her laptop as he talked, her unease growing with each new piece of information. Chemical dispersal systems, enclosed space delivery methods, ventilation-based toxin distribution, VX nerve agents, military assassination protocols. Every search result painted the same horrifying picture. This was weapons-grade technology designed for targeted elimination. "If this activates while someone's in that office," Sarah said, her voice carefully controlled, "what happens?" Derek met her eyes. "Based on what I found, death within 60 to 90 seconds. The technical specifications mention nerve agent derivatives similar to VX compounds. You'd have maybe 30 seconds after exposure to receive an antidote, assuming one was available. After that, respiratory failure, cardiac arrest, and death. And because it's delivered through the ventilation system, the concentration would be highest near the air vents, which, in your office, according to the blueprints I worked from, are positioned directly above your desk." Sarah sat back in her chair, forcing herself to think clearly through the rising panic. James Collier had authorized this installation. James, who knew her schedule down to the minute because he'd worked alongside her for 15 years. James, who knew she always arrived at her office at exactly 8:30 every morning, always through the same entrance, always stopping for coffee at the same cart outside the building. James, who would know exactly where she'd be when that device activated. But why? What could possibly motivate James to want her dead? Sarah's mind raced back through recent events, looking for the trigger. Then it hit her. The memory came flooding back with crystalline clarity. 3 weeks ago, late evening, Sarah had been reviewing the quarterly financial reports when she decided to check on the status of their flagship product, the COR9 cardiac monitoring implant. Crestline had spent 6 years and over $200 million developing it. The device was genuinely revolutionary. A subcutaneous implant no larger than a grain of rice that could monitor heart rhythms continuously and predict cardiac events up to 48 hours before they occurred. Early intervention that could save lives. The FDA approval hearing was scheduled for next month. Projected revenue, $3 billion over the first 5 years. Stock analysts were calling it a game changer. Investment firms were upgrading Crestline's rating based purely on the COR9's potential. But when Sarah had examined the Phase 3 clinical trial data that evening, she'd found something that made her blood run cold. The patient response data was too uniform. Success rates of 97% across all demographic groups. Elderly patients, young adults, people with diabetes, people with hypertension, patients on various medications. That kind of consistency was virtually impossible in real-world medical testing. Different populations always responded differently to treatments. She dug deeper. The statistical distributions were too smooth, following almost perfect bell curves. Real medical data had irregularities, outliers, unexpected results that required investigation and explanation. This data looked like it had been generated by a computer model, not collected from actual human patients. Sarah had spent that entire night going through every page of the trial documentation. By dawn, she'd been certain. The data had been falsified. Someone had manufactured results to make the COR9 look far more effective and safe than it actually was. She'd confronted James about it 2 days ago in his office. The memory of that conversation was burned into her mind now. "The COR9 data has problems," she told him, spreading the printouts across his desk. Look at these response curves. Look at these success rates. This isn't real clinical data, James. This is fabricated. James had barely glanced at the papers. You're seeing patterns where none exist, Sarah. You've been working too hard. When was the last time you took a real vacation? I'm serious about this. I've been analyzing clinical data for 20 years. I know what real results look like. This isn't it. The FDA has reviewed everything. They haven't raised any concerns. Because they're trusting us to provide accurate data. If we're lying to them, we're not lying. James's voice had hardened. The COR9 trials were conducted by Dr. Amy Trudeau under my supervision. Everything was done by the book. If you're going to make accusations like this, you'd better have something more substantial than statistical anomalies. Sarah had held her ground. I want to schedule a meeting with the FDA, present these concerns officially, delay the approval until we can verify the trial data independently. James had gone very quiet, the kind of quiet that preceded explosions. Then he'd leaned back in his chair and said, Sarah, I'm asking you as your friend and colleague, don't do anything hasty. Give me 1 week to review the data myself with fresh eyes. If there are genuine problems, we'll address them together. But if you go to the FDA with accusations based on hunches, it could destroy everything we've built. Everything you've built. Sarah had wanted to refuse, to insist on immediate action. But James was right about one thing. If she was wrong, false accusations could devastate the company. So she'd agreed to wait 1 week. That conversation had happened 48 hours ago. And now, less than 2 days later, someone had installed a chemical weapon in her office designed to kill her the moment she walked in. The COR9 device, Sarah said aloud, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. James falsified the clinical trial data. The device doesn't work as claimed. Maybe it's dangerous. If the FDA discovers the fraud before approval, Crestline gets shut down. Federal investigation, criminal charges, prison time, and James personally owns $40 million in stock options that vest the moment the COR9 receives FDA approval. If I expose the fraud, he loses everything. Derek was watching her. So he decided killing you was easier than letting you report him. It looks that way. Sarah pulled out her phone and dialed Marcus Webb, her head of security. She'd hired Marcus 3 years ago after a series of break-ins at Crestline's research facilities. Former military police, meticulous, trustworthy. If anyone could help her verify this nightmare, it was Marcus. The phone rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. Sarah? It's 4:30 in the morning. What's wrong? Marcus, I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it right now without asking questions. She heard rustling as Marcus sat up, suddenly alert. Okay, what do you need? Pull the facilities records from my office. 3 days ago there was an equipment installation. I need everything you can find on the contractor who did the work. Company information, business registration, employee records, everything. Can you tell me what this is about? Not yet. Just trust me. This is urgent. There was a pause, then Marcus said, Give me 15 minutes. I'll call you back. Sarah ended the call and looked at Derek. My head of security. If there's something wrong with that installation authorization, he'll find it. What about the device itself? Derek asked. It's still in your office right now. Still armed. Still set to activate in less than 4 hours. We'll deal with that. But first I need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with. Who authorized it? Who's behind it? What their endgame is. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. She opened it and felt ice run down her spine. The message contained a single photo. A little girl sleeping in a bed decorated with princess sheets and stuffed animals. The photo was time-stamped 22 minutes ago. Derek grabbed the phone, his face draining of all color. That's Maya. That's my daughter. That's her bedroom in my apartment. His voice was shaking. Someone was in my home. Someone was in my daughter's room while she was sleeping. Do you have a babysitter staying with her? Sarah asked quickly, her mind already racing through the implications. No, she's alone. I left her sleeping. I told myself I'd only be gone for 5 minutes, just long enough to warn you and get back. I never thought. Derek was already standing, moving toward the door. I need to get back to her right now. Wait! Sarah caught his arm. If someone was in your apartment taking photos, they might still be there, or they might be watching the building. We need to be smart about this. That's my daughter, Derek said, his voice raw with fear. I don't care if someone's watching. I need to make sure she's safe. Sarah thought fast. We go together. We take the stairs, not the elevator. We move quietly and quickly, and if anything looks wrong, anything at all, we call the police immediately. Agreed? Derek nodded, his jaw clenched. They left Sarah's apartment and moved quickly but silently down the hallway. The building was still quiet at this pre-dawn hour, most residents sleeping through what would be just another ordinary Thursday morning for them. Sarah and Derek took the emergency stairs, their footsteps echoing softly in the concrete stairwell as they descended 6 floors. When they reached the 12th floor, Derek stopped at his apartment door. He pulled out his keys with trembling hands and unlocked it slowly, pushing the door open just a crack. Maya? He called softly into the darkness. No response. Derek pushed the door wider and stepped inside. Sarah followed, her senses on high alert. The apartment was small but neat. A living room with worn but comfortable furniture, a small kitchenette, toys organized in colorful bins against one wall. Down a short hallway, a nightlight cast a soft glow from one of the bedrooms. Derek rushed down the hall. Sarah heard him exhale with profound relief. She's okay, he called back. She's still sleeping. Sarah moved to the doorway of Maya's room. The little girl was curled up under a princess blanket, her breathing soft and steady. One arm wrapped around a stuffed rabbit. She looked peaceful, completely unaware that someone with malicious intent had stood in this exact spot less than half an hour ago and photographed her. Derek knelt beside her bed, his hand gently touching her shoulder, just needing the physical confirmation that she was real and safe. Sarah saw tears on his face. Someone was in here, he whispered, his voice breaking, while my daughter was sleeping. Someone stood right here and took that picture. Sarah scanned the room carefully. The window was closed and locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry. The door to the apartment had been locked when they arrived. Whoever had been here had either picked the lock with professional tools or had a key. Check your front door lock, Sarah said quietly. See if there are any scratches or signs of tampering. While Derek examined the lock, Sarah looked around the apartment more carefully. Nothing seemed disturbed or out of place. No drawers opened, no cabinets rifled through. This hadn't been a robbery or a search. This had been a message. A very specific message. We can reach your daughter whenever we want. Derek came back down the hallway. Lock looks normal, no scratches, but I keep a spare key in the building maintenance office. I do HVAC repairs in this building sometimes, so I have access. Someone who works in that office or has clearance could have made a copy. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. Mr. Hale made an unwise decision tonight. His daughter's safety depends on better choices moving forward. Keep quiet and maybe she stays safe. Make noise and find out what happens to little girls who sleep alone. The message made Sarah's blood boil, threatening a child, using a 7-year-old as leverage. Whatever doubt she might have had about James Collier's involvement evaporated in that moment. Only someone truly desperate and morally bankrupt would target an innocent child. They're threatening her, Sarah said, showing Derek the message. They know you warned me. They're trying to scare you into silence. Derek read the message, his expression hardening from fear into anger. I need to get Maya somewhere safe, right now. My sister lives in New Hampshire. We could be there in 2 hours. That might not be far enough. If they know where you live, they probably know your family connections too. Your sister's address would be easy to find. Then where? I don't have a lot of options here. Maya's mother died when she was born. Her grandparents are gone. My parents passed away years ago. It's always been just the 2 of us. Sarah made a decision. I have a property outside the city, a cottage in Lexington that I inherited from my aunt 3 years ago. It's not in my name, still in the family trust. Nobody at Crestline knows about it. We could go there. Why would you do that? Derek asked. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. If anything, I'm the one who put that weapon in your office. Even if I didn't know what it was, my hands built the thing. You saved my life tonight, Sarah said simply. You could have stayed quiet, taken your money and walked away clean. Nobody would have connected you to what happened. But instead, you risked everything to warn me. You put your daughter at risk to do the right thing. Now, we're both targets, which means we need to protect each other and keep Maya safe. We're in this together now. Derek looked at his sleeping daughter, then back at Sarah. Okay, but we need to move fast. If they were here 22 minutes ago, they might come back. Pack whatever you need for a few days, Sarah said. Clothes for Maya, her schoolwork, anything she can't be without. I'll go back to my apartment and do the same. We meet in the parking garage in 20 minutes. Derek nodded and moved quietly to Maya's closet to pull out a small suitcase. Sarah hurried back upstairs to her own apartment, her mind racing through logistics and possibilities. She needed clothes, toiletries, her laptop, phone charger, the backup files she'd made of the COR9 data. She needed important documents, and she needed protection. In her bedroom safe, Sarah kept her late husband's service weapon. Tom had been a federal prosecutor before the car accident that killed him 5 years ago. He'd worked on organized crime cases, public corruption, dangerous defendants. He'd kept a gun for protection, though he'd rarely carried it. After his death, Sarah had maintained the weapon and kept her license current, more out of respect for Tom's memory than any belief she'd ever needed. Now she opened the safe and pulled out the locked case. Inside was a Glock 19 and 2 magazines. She checked the safety, verified it was unloaded, and packed it carefully in her bag, along with the ammunition. She grabbed her laptop and the external hard drive where she'd backed up all her Crestline files, including the problematic COR9 data. Then she threw clothes into a bag, moving quickly but methodically. Phone charger, toiletries, cash from the emergency fund she kept in her desk drawer. Her mind was operating on pure survival instinct now. She took one last look around her apartment, the space she'd lived in alone for 5 years after Tom's death, building walls around herself, convinced that isolation was the same as safety. Now she was leaving it behind with a man she barely knew and his 7-year-old daughter, fleeing from a threat she still didn't fully understand. Her phone rang. Marcus Webb. "Sarah, I've got that information you wanted," Marcus said without preamble. "And you're not going to like it. Tell me." Apex Environmental Solutions was registered 8 weeks ago through a shell corporation based in Delaware. The business license is technically legitimate, but there's no operational history. No employee records beyond the bare minimum required for registration. No previous contracts. No physical office location that I can verify. No website, no phone listing, no business insurance. It's a front company, Sarah, created specifically for this one job. Sarah felt her suspicions confirmed. "Can you trace who registered it?" "I'm working on that, but it's buried under several layers of corporate entities. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing. They knew how to hide their tracks. But Sarah, there's something else. Something worse." "What?" "I pulled security footage from your office building like you asked. Dr. Collier accessed your office at 2:17 a.m. last night." Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. What was he doing there? "He spent 19 minutes going through your desk, your filing cabinets, and your office safe. He had the access codes, must have gotten them from building security records. He removed several files and folders, put them in a box, and left. I can't tell exactly what he took from the camera angle, but it looked like he knew exactly what he was searching for. The backup files. James had gone looking for the COR9 evidence. He'd taken the physical documents she'd compiled, trying to eliminate any proof of the data falsification, which meant he didn't know she'd also made digital copies. "Marcus, I need you to do something else," Sarah said. "And this is going to sound insane, but I need you to trust me completely." "I'm listening." "There's a device installed in my office ventilation system. It's not an air quality upgrade. It's a weapon. A chemical dispersal system designed to release nerve agent when activated. It's set to go off at 8:30 this morning." Dead silence on the other end. "Marcus, are you there?" "Sarah." His voice was very controlled. "What the hell's going on?" "Dr. Collier's trying to kill me. That equipment installation wasn't legitimate. It was an assassination device disguised as routine maintenance. And if I'd gone to work this morning like I normally do, I'd be dead right now. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Another long pause. You're completely serious. Absolutely serious. I have the technician who installed it with me right now. He had no idea what it was until he researched the components last night. That's how I found out. Jesus Christ. She heard Marcus moving around, probably getting dressed. Okay. I can access the mechanical room above your office. I can try to disable it. But Sarah, if this thing is as dangerous as you're saying, and if Collier is really behind this, we need to involve the authorities. Federal authorities. I know, but first I need that device secured. Can you disable it safely? I don't know. I'll need to see it first, but I'll do my best. Be careful, Marcus. If James finds out we're onto him, he might try to trigger it remotely. Where are you right now? I'm leaving my apartment. Taking protective measures. I'll call you back in an hour with details. Sarah, wait. If Collier is really trying to kill you, you can't just hide. He has resources, connections, money. He could... I know. That's why I'm also gathering evidence. Everything I need to destroy him if this goes the way I think it's going to go. Just disable that device. I'll handle the rest. Sarah ended the call and grabbed her bags. She took the stairs down to the parking garage, moving quickly and checking behind her constantly for any sign that someone was following or watching. Derek was already there, waiting by a dark blue Honda Civic. Maya was with him now, awake and bundled in a winter coat, clutching her stuffed rabbit and looking confused and sleepy. "Daddy, where are we going?" Maya asked, her voice small. "On an adventure with Miss Sarah," Derek said, forcing his voice to stay calm and reassuring. "We're going to stay at her cottage for a few days. It's in the woods, very peaceful and safe. Will there be animals? Probably deer and rabbits. Maybe some birds. Can I bring my art supplies?" "Of course, sweetheart. They're in your backpack." Sarah approached them. "My car or yours?" "You lead, I'll follow," Derek said. "If we get separated, give me the address." Sarah gave him the Lexington address, and they split up. Sarah got into her black Lexus, checking the back seat carefully before starting the engine, paranoia that now seemed entirely justified. Derek secured Maya in his car, then pulled out behind Sarah. They left the parking garage and drove through the empty pre-dawn streets of Boston. Sarah kept checking her rearview mirror obsessively, looking for any vehicles that might be following them. The streets were nearly deserted at this hour, just a few early shift workers and delivery trucks. Her phone rang again. Marcus. "I found it," Marcus said, his voice tight with tension. "Sarah, this thing is exactly what you described. Chemical dispersal system, military-grade hardware, multiple sealed canisters connected to your office's dedicated ventilation. Digital timer currently showing 3 hours and 41 minutes until activation. And there's a remote activation capability with encrypted radio frequency control. Can you disable it without triggering it?" "I'm trying, but the system has fail-safes. If I disconnect it wrong, the pressure sensors might interpret it as tampering and trigger an immediate release. I need to find the timer's power source and disconnect the battery without touching the pneumatic valves." Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel as she navigated through an intersection. "Marcus, listen carefully. Look for the timer unit itself. It should be a digital display with an attached battery pack, probably lithium-ion. There should be a small access panel on the back or bottom of the unit. You need to open that panel and disconnect the battery leads without disrupting the pressure sensor wiring. The sensors will be color-coded, usually red and black wires running to the canister connections. Don't touch those." "How do you know all this?" "The technician who installed it explained the system to me. He's with me right now. He feels guilty as hell for being used, so he's been completely transparent about everything." She heard Marcus working with tools, the sound of metal against metal. His breathing was heavy. "Okay," Marcus said. "I've got the access panel open. I can see the battery pack. 2 leads, positive and negative. If I cut these, the timer should die, right?" "Yes, but make sure you're not cutting the sensor wires by mistake. What colors are the wires you're looking at?" "Blue and yellow for the battery leads. Red and black running to the canisters." "Good. Cut the blue and yellow. Leave the red and black completely alone." She heard snipping sounds. Then Marcus exhaled deeply. Done. Timer's dead. Display just went dark. Sarah felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Okay, now we need to call the FBI. This is way beyond what we can handle ourselves. This is federal terrorism, chemical weapons, attempted murder of a CEO. We need serious resources. Already done, Marcus said. I called them 5 minutes ago, right after you told me what this thing was. Special Agent Laura Reeves is on her way to the building right now. She should be here within 10 minutes. Tell her everything. Show her the device. Give her the security footage of James in my office. Tell her about the Shell Corporation. And Marcus, tell her I'll contact her directly once I'm somewhere secure. Give her my cell number. Where are you going? The less you know right now, the safer you are. I'll call you back in a few hours once I've figured out our next move. Sarah ended the call and continued driving. Behind her, Derek's Honda followed at a steady distance. They took Route 2 west out of the city, heading toward Lexington. The sky was starting to lighten now, deep purple giving way to gray at the eastern horizon. In another hour, the sun would be up and the city would be awake. People heading to work and school, living their normal lives. Sarah wondered if she'd ever have a normal life again after this. 25 minutes later, she pulled off the highway onto a rural road lined with bare trees. The cottage appeared after another 2 miles, a small white house set back from the road, surrounded by woods that were just starting to show hints of early spring green. Sarah parked in the gravel driveway and Derek pulled in beside her. They got out into the cold morning air. Maya was fully awake now, looking around with wide-eyed interest. It's pretty here, Maya said. So quiet. I can hear birds. Come on, sweetheart, Derek said, lifting her out of the car. Let's go inside and get you some breakfast. The cottage was cold. Sarah hadn't been here in several months. She turned on the heat and started opening curtains to let in the growing morning light. The space was simple but comfortable. A living room with a stone fireplace, a small but well-equipped kitchen, 2 bedrooms upstairs, and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. Her aunt had lived here for 30 years before passing away and leaving it to Sarah in her will. Maya immediately started exploring, her fear from earlier giving way to childhood curiosity. Derek brought in their bags while Sarah started making coffee and checking the pantry to see what food was available. We should be safe here for now, Sarah said as Derek joined her in the kitchen, at least until we can figure out what comes next. What does come next? Derek asked, his voice low so Maya wouldn't overhear from the other room. We're hiding in a cottage in the woods while a pharmaceutical executive tries to kill us. How long can we keep running? We're not running, Sarah said. We're regrouping. The FBI's involved now. Marcus called them. They're going to want statements from both of us. They'll investigate James, build a case, bring him in for questioning. Will that be enough? I don't know. James is smart and careful. He's had weeks to plan this. He'll have covered his tracks, prepared alibis, established plausible deniability. But he's also made mistakes. The device Marcus found, the security footage, your testimony about Richard Foster. It's building into something he can't easily explain away. Derek looked toward the living room where Maya was examining the fireplace with intense concentration. I keep thinking about that photo. Someone in her bedroom while she was sleeping. What kind of monster does that? Uses a child as a weapon? Someone who sees people as obstacles instead of human beings, Sarah said quietly. Someone who's lost whatever conscience he might have once had. Money does that to some people. $3 billion can make a person rationalize anything, including murder. Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously, putting it on speaker so Derek could hear. Ms. Brennan, this is Special Agent Laura Reeves with the FBI, a professional female voice said. Marcus Webb at Crestline Pharmaceuticals briefed me on your situation. I need to speak with you immediately about what we've recovered from your office. I'm listening. Where are you right now? Somewhere safe. What did Marcus show you? A chemical dispersal device containing what our preliminary field analysis indicates is a nerve agent derivative with characteristics similar to VX compounds. If that system had activated while someone was in the room, death would have occurred within 60 to 90 seconds. Ms. Brennan, this is not just attempted murder. This is terrorism using weapons of mass destruction. We're treating this with maximum priority. Good. Because the man who authorized that installation is still walking free, and he knows by now that his plan failed. We need formal statements from you and from the technician who installed the device. Marcus Webb said he's with you. Sarah glanced at Derek, who nodded. He is. Good. We also need to bring in Dr. James Collier for questioning immediately. But Ms. Brennan, I need you to understand something important. Until we have irrefutable evidence directly linking Collier to this device, beyond just the work authorization, he can claim he was framed or that he signed documents without reading them carefully. Corporate executives have lawyers, good lawyers. They know how to fight charges like this. We need more than we currently have. Sarah felt frustration rising. He tried to murder me. I believe you. But belief isn't the same as proof that will hold up in federal court. What we have right now is circumstantial. He signed the work order, but he can claim it was legitimate, and that someone else modified the installation after the fact. He accessed your office at 2 a.m., but he can claim he was retrieving sensitive documents for a meeting. We need the money trail. We need Richard Foster, the man who hired your technician. We need documentation of motive that we can present to a jury. Otherwise, Collier might walk. Sarah took a breath, forcing herself to think strategically. I can give you motive. James Collier falsified clinical trial data for a medical device that's about to receive FDA approval. The device is worth billions. I discovered the fraud and was planning to report it. That's why he wanted me dead, to prevent me from exposing him. Do you have copies of that data? Yes, on a hard drive. It's with me now. That's excellent. That establishes motive clearly, but we still need to connect him to the actual murder attempt. We need Richard Foster. Do you have any information about him? Derek, the technician, met with him once. He can describe him, and he took a photo without Foster knowing. I'd like to see that photo immediately. Can you send it to me? Sarah had Derek forward the image to Agent Reeves's number. A moment later, Reeves said, I'm looking at it now. This matches the description of a known contractor named David Brenner. Former Army intelligence, dishonorably discharged 3 years ago for selling classified information. He's been working as a freelance operative for clients who need things done quietly. Everything from surveillance to industrial espionage to, apparently, setting up assassination devices disguised as HVAC equipment. Can you find him? Sarah asked. We're trying. But Brenner is very good at staying invisible. He uses multiple identities, changes locations frequently, maintains minimal digital footprint. However, he has made mistakes. We have him on security footage in Quincy 2 weeks ago. We're tracing his movements and known associates. How long will that take? Unknown. Could be hours, could be days. In the meantime, I need to arrange a meeting with you and Mr. Hale. We need formal statements, and I need to see that hard drive with the falsified trial data. Where are you right now? Sarah hesitated. We're at a private cottage in Lexington. But Agent Reeves, someone broke into Derek's apartment early this morning and photographed his daughter while she was sleeping. We received threatening messages. I'm not comfortable coming to a public location until I know we have real protection. I understand completely. Give me the address and I'll send agents to you. We'll establish security and conduct the interviews there. Sarah made a decision based on instinct. The cottage is at 47 Oakwood Road in Lexington. It's isolated, no neighbors nearby. You'll need to come in marked vehicles so we can see you approaching. Understood. My team will be there within 90 minutes. Don't open the door for anyone except federal personnel with proper identification. And, Ms. Brennan, stay alert. If Collier realizes his plan failed and that you're still alive, he may take more direct action. The call ended. Sarah looked at Derek. The FBI is coming. We need to be ready to tell them absolutely everything. Every detail, no matter how small it seems. What about Maya? Derek asked. Should I send her somewhere else while we're dealing with all this? I don't want her hearing about weapons and murder attempts. Where would she go? That's the problem. I don't have family nearby. Her mother's parents died before Maya was born. My parents are gone. My sister is 2 hours away, but you said that might not be safe if Collier knows how to find family connections. Sarah saw the exhaustion and fear in his face, the impossible weight of trying to protect a child while being thrust into a nightmare. She made another decision. She stays with us. We keep her close. We keep her safe. And we protect her together. When the FBI agents arrive, we'll have them set up in a way that keeps Maya comfortable and unaware of the worst details. She doesn't need to know about chemical weapons or death threats. She just needs to know her daddy is keeping her safe and that she's on an adventure. Derek's eyes were grateful. Thank you for all of this. For believing me, for helping Maya, for everything. You didn't have to do any of it. Yes, I did, Sarah said simply. You saved my life. And beyond that, this is the right thing to do. We're in this together now. They spent the next hour making the cottage as comfortable as possible. Sarah found games and art supplies in a closet. Her aunt had kept them for when Sarah's nephews visited. Maya settled at the kitchen table with crayons and paper, drawing elaborate pictures while Derek made breakfast from the limited supplies in the pantry. Sarah used the time to organize her evidence. She pulled up the COR9 files on her laptop, preparing to walk the FBI through exactly what she'd discovered. The falsified data wasn't just unethical, it was dangerous. If this device went to market with manufactured safety results, people with heart conditions would trust it with their lives. And if it failed, if the real-world performance didn't match the fake trial results, people would die. That's what James was protecting, not just his fortune, but his culpability in future deaths. If the fraud was exposed, he wouldn't just lose money. He'd face manslaughter charges for every patient harmed by a device he'd knowingly pushed through approval with false data. At exactly 9:30 a.m., Sarah heard vehicles approaching. She looked out the window and saw 2 black SUVs with FBI markings pulling into the driveway. 4 people got out, 3 in dark suits, 1 in tactical gear. Sarah opened the door cautiously. The lead person, a woman in her 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes, held up an FBI badge clearly. Miss Brennan? I'm Special Agent Laura Reeves. This is Agent Torres, Agent Chen, and Agent Park. May we come in? Sarah stepped aside. Please. The agents entered, their eyes immediately sweeping the cottage, assessing the space and the people. Agent Reeves saw Maya at the kitchen table, and her expression softened slightly. That's Derek Hale's daughter? Reeves asked quietly. Yes, Maya. She's 7. She doesn't know the full details of what's happening, and we'd like to keep it that way if possible. Reeves nodded. Understood. Agent Park, can you stay with Maya? Maybe help her with her art project while we speak with Miss Brennan and Mr. Hale? Agent Park, a young woman with a kind face, smiled and moved toward the kitchen table. Hey Maya, those are beautiful drawings. Can you tell me about them? Maya launched into an enthusiastic explanation of the castle she was drawing, complete with princesses and dragons. Agent Park settled in to listen, effectively creating a buffer between the child and the serious conversation about to happen in the living room. For the next 2 hours, Sarah and Derek walked Agents Reeves, Torres, and Chen through every detail of the past 8 hours. Derek explained the initial contact from Richard Foster, the meeting in Quincy, the installation of equipment he'd been told was an air quality upgrade. He showed them the work orders, the receipts, the text messages. Sarah explained her discovery of the falsified COR9 data, her confrontation with James Collier, the timeline leading to the installation. She showed them the security footage Marcus had sent of James accessing her office in the middle of the night. She pulled up the trial data on her laptop and walked them through the statistical anomalies that proved manipulation. Reeves recorded everything, asking sharp, probing questions, pushing for specifics and details. She was thorough and professional, clearly experienced in building cases that would hold up in court. This is substantial, Reeves said when they finished. The motive is clear. Collier had billions of dollars at stake and decades of his reputation invested in the COR9 device. You threatened to expose his fraud, so he decided elimination was easier than explanation. The device we recovered from your office proves the attempt. Your security footage places him in your office removing evidence. Mr. Hale's testimony connects Collier to the installation through his signed authorization, and the photo of David Brenner gives us a concrete lead to follow. Is it enough? Sarah asked. It's a strong foundation. But we need more. We need Brenner himself, Either as a witness or if he won't cooperate, we need evidence that directly connects him to Collier. Financial records showing payment from Collier to Brenner. Communications between them. Something that proves they worked together rather than just Collier signing a document without knowing what it really authorized. Agent Torres spoke up. We're already working on the financial angle. The shell corporation that hired Mr. Hale, Apex Environmental Solutions, was funded through a series of transfers that we're tracing back. It's going to take time, but we'll find the money trail eventually. How much time? Derek asked. Could be days, could be weeks. These kinds of investigations, following money through multiple corporate layers, getting cooperation from banks, obtaining subpoenas, they don't happen overnight. Sarah felt her frustration building again. In the meantime, James knows his plan failed. He knows I'm still alive. He knows you've recovered the device from my office. What's to stop him from running, or from trying again? We've got people watching him now, Reeves said. Plainclothes surveillance on his home, his office, his known locations. If he tries to flee, we'll pick him up immediately. And if he tries to come after us again, that's why we're here. We're establishing protective custody. You, Mr. Hale, and Maya will be relocated to a federal safe house with 24-hour security. You'll stay there until we have Collier in custody, and the immediate threat is neutralized. Derek's face tightened. For how long? We hope it won't be more than a few days, but I can't make guarantees. I have a job. I'm hourly. If I don't work, I don't get paid. I have rent due next week, utilities, Maya's school expenses, her after-school program. I can't just disappear for days or weeks without income. The Witness Protection Program has funds for situations like this, Agent Chen said. You'll be compensated for lost wages and ongoing expenses. Those programs cover basics, Derek said flatly. Rent and food. They don't cover real life. Maya needs new shoes. She's growing fast. I have a car payment, medical bills from when she was sick last month. The program funds won't touch those. Sarah spoke up. I'll cover whatever you need. Lost wages, all expenses, everything. Derek turned to her. Sarah, you can't. Yes, I can, and I will. You wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't warned me. You put your daughter at risk to do the right thing. The absolute least I can do is make sure Maya is taken care of financially while we sort this out. Reeves was watching the interaction with interest. Ms. Brennan, you should be aware that once we arrest Collier, your company is going to face intense scrutiny. Federal investigation into the COR9 device fraud. Possible criminal charges for other executives who were involved in the data falsification. Civil lawsuits from investors. Crestline Pharmaceuticals might not survive this. Sarah nodded slowly. I know, but that's not what matters right now. What matters is stopping a dangerous medical device from being approved based on lies, and making sure a man who's willing to murder people to protect his fortune doesn't get away with it. Crestline's survival is secondary to that. All right then. Reeves stood up. We're going to relocate you to a safe house in Brookline. It's a residential property that doesn't look like a federal facility. You'll have agents rotating shifts to provide security. Pack what you need. We're moving in 30 minutes. Over the next half hour, they gathered their belongings again. Agent Park helped Maya pack up her art supplies, making it feel like an adventure rather than a flight from danger. The agents coordinated logistics over their radios, arranging the transfer. As they were loading into the vehicles, Sarah's phone rang. Marcus Webb. Sarah, there's a development, Marcus said, his voice tense. Dr. Collier just left his office. He told his secretary he wasn't feeling well and needed to go home. But our security system shows he never arrived at his house. His car hasn't appeared at any of his known locations. His office computer shows he accessed several financial accounts right before he left. Sarah felt her pulse spike. He's running. That's what it looks like. And Sarah, he withdrew $50,000 cash from a company discretionary fund about an hour ago. Authorized it as emergency operational expenses. He came to accounting himself to pick it up. Sarah put the phone on speaker so Reeves could hear. Agent Reeves is here with me. Marcus, can you check if James accessed any other company resources in the past 24 hours? Already did. He processed a wire transfer yesterday afternoon. $200,000 to an offshore consulting company in the Cayman Islands. Accounting flagged it as unusual. but he overrode the approval personally. "He's been planning his escape for days," Sarah said. "The moment he realized his plan might fail, he started moving money and creating exit strategies." Reeves was already on her phone issuing orders. "Put out a bolo on James Collier immediately. White male, 52 years old, 6'1", approximately 180 pounds, gray hair, brown eyes. Last seen leaving Crestline Pharmaceuticals. Consider him a flight risk and potentially dangerous. I want coverage on all airports, train stations, and bus terminals in a 100-mile radius. Flag his passport, credit cards, and known vehicles." She hung up and looked at Sarah. "This actually works in our favor. A suspect fleeing is consciousness of guilt. If we catch him trying to leave the country with false documentation or large amounts of cash, it strengthens our case significantly." "What if you don't catch him?" Derek asked. "We will. He's not a professional fugitive. He's a pharmaceutical executive who's panicking. He'll make mistakes." But Sarah wasn't convinced. James was methodical and intelligent. If he was running, he had resources and plans that hadn't been discovered yet. He'd been thinking about this for weeks, while they'd only known about the threat for hours. They drove in convoy to the safe house in Brookline, a modest 2-story home in a quiet, suburban neighborhood. Nothing about it suggested federal protection, which was the point. The property was designed to blend in completely. Inside, 2 more agents were waiting, Williams and Foster. They'd be rotating shifts with the other agents, maintaining constant security coverage. "Make yourselves at home," Reeves said. "There's food in the kitchen, bedrooms upstairs, internet access if you need it for work. You're safe here. No one knows this location except authorized FBI personnel." Maya immediately started exploring the new house, her resilience shining through again. Children were remarkable that way, able to adapt to changing circumstances with a flexibility adults had lost. Derek followed her, keeping close but letting her satisfy her curiosity. Sarah sat at the dining room table with her laptop, feeling bone-deep exhaustion finally catching up with her. She'd been awake for over 16 hours now, running on adrenaline and coffee. But her mind refused to shut down. Reeves sat across from her. "You're thinking about something." "I'm thinking that James is still out there," Sarah said. "And as long as he is, none of us are truly safe. He's proven he's willing to kill. He's eliminated David Brenner. What's to stop him from trying again with us?" "Distance and security. He doesn't know where you are, and attempting another attack while under active FBI investigation would be suicidal for him, unless he's already planning to disappear. If he's got a new identity waiting, money in offshore accounts, a plane chartered to a country without extradition, then he has nothing to lose by tying up loose ends before he runs." Reeves studied her carefully. "You know this man well. You worked with him for 15 years. What do you think he's going to do?" Sarah thought about James, his careful planning, his attention to detail, his ability to think 3 steps ahead. "He's going to try to control the narrative. Right now, the story is that he tried to kill me and failed. He'll want to change that story, make himself the victim, me the aggressor. He'll claim I'm disgruntled, that I'm trying to destroy him professionally out of jealousy or spite. That's going to be hard to maintain when we have a chemical weapon with his signature on the authorization. He'll say he was framed, that someone forged his signature or manipulated him into signing documents he didn't read carefully. He'll have lawyers who specialize in creating reasonable doubt. And if we don't have absolute proof connecting him directly to Brenner and the murder attempt, there's a chance he could win. Then we need to find that absolute proof," Reeves said, "which means I need to ask you something. Is there anyone else at Crestline who might have been involved in this? Anyone who would have helped Collier or who knew about the falsified data?" Sarah considered the question. Dr. Amy Trudeau was the lead researcher on the COR9 trials. If the data was falsified, she would have known. But I haven't been able to reach her for the past week. She called in sick and hasn't been responding to emails or calls. "Do you think Collier got to her?" "I think he might have threatened her, or paid her to stay quiet, or both. We need to find her. She could be a crucial witness." Reeves made notes on her tablet. "Give me her address and any contact information you have. We'll send agents to locate her and bring her in for questioning." Sarah pulled up Amy's employee file and provided the information. As she did, something occurred to her. There's someone else who might be able to help. Rachel Kim. She's an investigative journalist with the Boston Globe. We've known each other for years. She's worked on pharmaceutical industry stories before. If I give her this story, if it goes public, James won't be able to hide. Reeves hesitated. Going public could complicate our investigation. How? Right now, James is out there with $50,000 cash, offshore accounts, and apparently a head start on running. Your investigation is moving at government speed, subpoenas and paperwork and procedures. Meanwhile, he's moving at criminal speed. I want to change that dynamic. If this story breaks nationally, if his face is on every news channel in America, he can't hide. The public pressure will smoke him out. It could also make him more desperate, force him into more extreme actions. He's already desperate. He's already committed murder and attempted murder. How much more extreme can it get? Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling Rachel. She deserves to know what's happening. And the public deserves to know that a pharmaceutical executive tried to murder someone to cover up device fraud. Reeves started to object, then stopped. If you're going to do this, at least wait until we've secured Dr. Trudeau. Give us a few hours to find her and get her statement. Then you can go public with everything at once. More impact, more witnesses, harder for Collier to fight. Sarah nodded. Okay, a few hours, but no longer than that. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Maya watched cartoons and played with toys the agents had brought. Derek tried to rest on the couch but couldn't. His tension was visible in every movement, the constant alertness of a father protecting his child. Sarah worked on her laptop, organizing every piece of evidence she had. The COR9 trial data, the security footage, the work orders, Derek's testimony, the photos of the device. She built a comprehensive file that told the complete story from beginning to end. Around 3 p.m., Reeves got a call. She listened intently, her expression unreadable, then hung up and came to Sarah. We found Dr. Trudeau, Reeves said. She's agreed to cooperate. She's being brought in for an interview now. What did she say? Collier approached her 6 months ago and told her he needed the COR9 trial results to look better. More consistent, more impressive. He said it was just about presenting the data in the best light for the FDA. But what he was really asking her to do was falsify results. When she refused, he threatened her. Said he'd make sure she never worked in medical research again. Said he had evidence she'd violated ethics protocols on previous studies, evidence he could create if necessary. Sarah felt anger rising. So he blackmailed her into committing fraud. That's her claim. And if it's true, it makes her a victim and a witness, rather than an accomplice. She's willing to testify that Collier forced her to manipulate the data, that she has documentation of his threats, and that she's been terrified for months that he would follow through on destroying her career. That's motive, Sarah said. Clear motive for murder. If I exposed the fraud, Amy would have been forced to admit her role, which would have exposed James's threats, which would have destroyed him. So he decided to kill me before I could make that report. Exactly. This strengthens the case significantly. Reeves checked her watch. It's after 3 p.m. If you want to contact your journalist friend, now would be the time. Once this story breaks, there's no taking it back. Sarah pulled out her phone and called Rachel Kim. Sarah, Rachel answered immediately. I've been trying to reach you all day. What the hell's going on? I heard through my sources that the FBI raided Crestline this morning and removed some kind of device from your office. Are you somewhere you can talk privately? Always. Talk to me. This is going to be the biggest story of your career, Sarah said. But you need to come to me. I'll send you an address. Come alone. And Rachel, bring your recorder. You're going to want every word of this. 90 minutes later, Rachel Kim arrived at the safe house with Agent Torres escorting her. Rachel took in the scene, the FBI presence, the security measures, Sarah and Derek's exhaustion, and immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Talk to me, Rachel said, pulling out her digital recorder and notepad. Everything from the beginning. Sarah laid it all out. The COR9 device and the falsified clinical data. James Collier's financial stake in the approval, $40 million in stock options plus his reputation as a brilliant researcher. The confrontation where Sarah had threatened to report the fraud. The installation of a chemical weapon in her office, disguised as an air quality upgrade. Derek's discovery at midnight that he'd unknowingly installed an assassination device. His decision to warn Sarah at 4 a.m. The threatening photo of Maya. David Brenner's involvement and subsequent murder. James's midnight visit to Sarah's office to steal evidence. Dr. Amy Trudeau's testimony about being blackmailed into falsifying data. James's disappearance this afternoon with $50,000 in cash and wire transfers to offshore accounts. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker as the story unfolded. She filled page after page with notes, occasionally asking for clarification or specific details. "This is enormous," Rachel said when Sarah finished. "Corporate fraud, attempted murder using weapons of mass destruction, witness intimidation, a dangerous medical device that could harm thousands of patients. This isn't just a business story. This is national news. Front page material. Network television will pick it up immediately. That's why I'm telling you," Sarah said. "People need to know what happened. The public needs to understand that a pharmaceutical executive was willing to murder someone to protect his approval of a device that doesn't work as claimed. And we need the pressure of publicity to force James out of hiding." Rachel looked at Reeves. "I assume the FBI wants me to hold the story while you conclude your investigation?" "We'd prefer to have Collier in custody first," Reeves said carefully. "But I understand the public interest angle. If you're going to publish, I'd ask that you include our statement that this is an active federal investigation and that James Collier should be considered potentially dangerous. I can do that." Rachel turned back to Sarah. "I'll have this story online within 2 hours. Front page of the Globe website. Print edition hits tomorrow morning. Every news outlet in the country will pick it up by tonight." After Rachel left, Sarah felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. Once the story was public, there was no going back. James would know exactly what evidence they had. He'd know that Sarah was alive and cooperating with federal authorities. He'd know that his reputation was about to be destroyed nationally. The question was, what would he do with that knowledge? That evening, as the sun set over the safe house, Sarah's phone buzzed with an alert. Rachel's story had just gone live on the Boston Globe website. Pharmaceutical CEO targeted in murder, plot. Chemical weapon installed in executive office. FBI investigating Dr. James Collier for attempted murder and device fraud. Sarah read the article. Rachel had captured everything perfectly. The dangerous medical device fraud, the falsified trial data, the chemical weapon, Derek's role as an unwitting installer, Amy Trudeau's testimony, James Collier's disappearance. Quotes from Sarah, Derek, and Agent Reeves. Photos of Crestline's headquarters and the COR-9 device. By 8 p.m., the story had exploded across national media. Network news picked it up. Cable channels ran it as breaking news. Social media was ablaze with reactions. Crestline's stock price had cratered. The FDA had issued an emergency statement halting all proceedings related to the COR-9 device pending investigation. The company's board had called an emergency meeting. James Collier's face was everywhere. Photos from corporate events, screenshots from Crestline's website, images from medical conferences. He'd gone from respected researcher to wanted fugitive in a matter of hours. Around 9 p.m., Agent Reeves got a call that made her expression change dramatically. She listened intently, then hung up and looked at Sarah and Derek. "We found him," Reeves said. "Massachusetts State Police spotted James Collier at a private marina in Gloucester. He was trying to hire a boat captain to take him to Nova Scotia. Cash payment, no paperwork. The captain got suspicious and called it in. Police are bringing Collier into custody right now." Sarah felt a wave of relief so powerful she had to sit down. "It's over." "The arrest is over," Reeves corrected. "Now comes the prosecution, building the case, gathering all evidence, preparing for trial. That process could take months. But yes, the immediate danger has passed. He's in custody and he won't be getting bail for charges this serious." Derek exhaled deeply and pulled Maya into a hug. The little girl had been coloring at the table, oblivious to the significance of what was happening around her. "Does this mean we can go home?" Maya asked. Derek looked at Reeves. "You can leave protective custody," Reeves said. But I'd recommend staying somewhere other than your own apartment for a few more days, just as a precaution. We need to verify that Collier acted alone and that there aren't any remaining threats." Sarah spoke up. "Stay at the cottage. Both of you. It's isolated, it's safe, and you can take whatever time you need to decompress before going back to normal life." Derek met her eyes. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure." Over the following days, the full scope of James Collier's crimes became clear. Federal investigators traced payments from Collier to David Brenner through a series of shell corporations. They recovered communications between Collier and Brenner discussing special installation requirements and target elimination protocols. They found evidence that Collier had been systematically falsifying research data for over 3 years, not just on the COR9 device, but on multiple other projects. Dr. Amy Trudeau provided detailed testimony about the blackmail and threats she'd endured. Several other Crestline researchers came forward to report similar experiences. Collier pressuring them to manipulate data, threatening their careers if they refused. The COR9 device was pulled from consideration entirely. Independent testing revealed that it was not only ineffective but potentially dangerous, with a failure rate that could lead to missed cardiac events and preventable deaths. Crestline Pharmaceuticals filed for bankruptcy protection. The board terminated James Collier for cause and cooperated fully with federal investigators. Sarah declined multiple offers to return as CEO. The company was tainted, its reputation destroyed. She wanted nothing more to do with it. Instead, she made a different decision. 6 weeks after that early morning knock on her door, Sarah stood in a small office space in Cambridge, watching as contractors installed a sign, "Brennan Hale, Consulting, Medical Ethics and Safety Compliance." Derek was beside her, reviewing layout plans for their new office space. They decided to go into business together. Sarah's expertise in pharmaceuticals and regulatory compliance, combined with Derek's technical knowledge of systems, safety protocols, and building infrastructure. Maya was in the back office doing homework at a small desk they'd set up for her. She came to the office after school most days now, happy to be near her father and Sarah, who'd become a permanent fixture in their lives. The consulting firm started small but grew quickly. Their first clients were pharmaceutical companies desperate to avoid the mistakes that had destroyed Crestline. Sarah and Derek reviewed clinical trials, audited safety data, verified equipment installations, provided training on ethics and regulatory compliance. But more than the work itself, Sarah found herself grateful for something she hadn't expected: family. Derek and Maya had moved into an apartment just 2 blocks from Sarah's building. They saw each other constantly. They had dinner together several nights a week. Maya called Sarah Miss Sarah still, but the relationship had evolved into something much deeper. Sarah attended Maya's school events, helped with homework, took her shopping for new shoes and clothes. They'd become each other's emergency contacts. They'd become each other's family. 3 months after James Collier's arrest, Sarah sat in a federal courtroom listening to the judge's verdict. Guilty on all counts: attempted murder using weapons of mass destruction, fraud, falsification of clinical data, witness intimidation, murder for hire in the death of David Brenner. James Collier was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Outside the courthouse, Sarah spoke to reporters about integrity in medical research, about the dangers of putting profit over patient safety, about the importance of whistleblowers who risk everything to do what's right. But what she didn't tell them was the deeper lesson she'd learned: that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, that a stranger's conscience and courage can save your life. That family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the one you build through crisis and trust and shared trauma. 6 months after everything happened, Sarah stood in what had become their apartment, the space she shared with Derek and Maya, though they maintained separate bedrooms and had moved slowly, carefully, building something real. Derek came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Maya was at the dining table working on a school project, a family tree assignment. "Miss Sarah," Maya called. Mrs. Henderson says I should include people who are like family, even if they're not related by blood. Can I put you on my family tree? Sarah felt her throat tighten with emotion. I'd be honored, sweetheart. Maya smiled and carefully added Sarah's name to the branches of her drawing. Derek kissed Sarah's temple. You know what today is? The anniversary. 6 months since you knocked on my door at 4 a.m. Best decision I ever made. Sarah turned in his arms to face him. You saved my life that morning. You gave me and Maya a new life, Derek countered. Before all this, I was just surviving. Working night shifts, barely making ends meet, trying to give Maya something stable. Now I have a real career, a partner I trust completely, a future that actually looks bright. I was dying before that morning, Sarah said. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. I'd convinced myself that being alone meant being safe, that not letting people in meant not getting hurt. You showed me I was wrong. You and Maya both. They stood together watching the sun set through the apartment windows, Maya humming softly in the background, and Sarah thought about the profound transformation of the past 6 months. Not just the dramatic events, the murder plot, the FBI investigation, the trial, but the quieter, more important transformation that had happened afterward. She'd learned to let people in, to trust, to build something with others instead of always going it alone. She'd found family. And it had all started with 3 words at 4 a.m. Just trust me. She had trusted. And in doing so, she'd found more than survival. She'd found life. Okay, let's all just take a breath after that one. It's amazing how a story can completely change the feeling in a room, isn't it? It has a weight and a life of its own. Here's a thought. If this story made you think of someone, what's one single word you would use to describe its core message to them? I'd love to see the words that show up in the comments. You know, every like and subscribe acts like a ripple. It starts with you, and it spreads outward, carrying the feeling of this story to people we'll never even meet. You become part of that ripple. Thank you for being the one to start the wave, for listening, and for being here. Now go out there and make some good ripples of your own.